Dustin Poirier is a black belt. But he is. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, bro. What do you mean, please?
This is Johnny with TigerBomb MMA, and today I'm going over UFC 302, Makhachev versus Poirier, giving you my thoughts and predictions on the whole card. I'm on vacation right now in sunny Corona, California, for a quinceañera, which is a Mexican, I guess Latin American party for when you're about to give away your 15-year-old daughter to the men because they're prime, ripe age of... Anyways, I'll give you my thoughts on the entire card. Probably be a quick breakdown since I've been pretty busy and it's kind of late. But yeah, overall, pretty good card. Very 50-50 matchups. There's a lot of what-ifs that could happen on this card, which is really making me a bit reluctant to bet it. But yeah, I'll give you my thoughts on these, starting with the first fight of the night, which is at flyweight. We've got the return of Andre Lima, a.k.a. got bit in my arm, versus Mitch Raposo. So the funny thing about Mitch Raposo is that when he was on the, Ultimate Fighter, he was talking about how he's going to be this next-level dude and shit. And he got beat up by a pretty standard guy. I think it was Ludovic something or other, Sholinian. And he's 9-1. He's only lost once in the, I guess, UFC era realm, which would have been against White Kong. Jake Hadley, is that his name? Can't remember. Yeah, Jake Hadley. He got submitted on the Dana White's Contender Series. And if I'm being honest about Mitch Raposo, he's 25 years old. He's 5'5". He's pretty solid, right? I do think he belongs in the UFC. He has some skills. He's got good boxing, good wrestling. It's just that when he's been fighting outside the UFC and beating these guys, I've not been truly impressed with his level of competition. It's more so the skill that he possesses is clearly there. We can see it. The only issue that I have with him is that he doesn't seem like a fully complete fighter, meaning that he just likes to box, and I think he's fallen in love with his striking. As for Andre Lima, I do have my issues with him, and he's like a -2-something, 225. Come back on like a Mitch Raposo. I don't have his actual odds, but I'm going to say like around like +150 or so. What I like about Andre Lima is that he's more of a complete fighter, although there's some issues with him when it comes to like the get-ups. He gets taken down a little bit too easily. At least that's what I saw in his last fight against the guy who bit him. Whose name I can't remember right now. It's Igor Servino. I feel as if Mitch Raposo wants to play that game, he can. I don't think he will. I don't think he's going to try to actively take him down. Like, he's coming off, a pretty good knockout in the fourth round against a nobody for a championship at flyweight, and he wants to make a good impression for the UFC to keep him around, meaning that if he comes in here on short notice and he doesn't perform and he comes out here and tries to grapple with Andre Lima, it's not going to be the best look. So I think he is going to come trying to strike with Andre Lima. The thing is that I think he's going to be exposed for the leg kicks there. I think if he does try to take it to the ground, I do think Lima has the ability to get back up. I think in his last fight, Lima had issues with a much bigger guy who is just as lanky or more lanky than he is. So I think that's what caused a bit of that issue with him, where I do think he kind of looked a bit off for him to be -220, but I do think he's going to win this fight. I think he's a more complete fighter here. I think he's got the jiu-jitsu off of his back. I think he can get back up. I think he has the Muay Thai to really deal with Mitch's more boxing-oriented style. So I am going to pick Andre Lima to win this. I do think he can win this by decision. If it does go to the mat, I do think he has a chance to possibly submit Mitch Raposo if he takes his back. But Mitch, I think he's gotten a lot better. I think he's learned from his time away from the UFC, essentially, even though he's never officially there. I think he's getting better. I think he can win some fights in the UFC, but I think Andre Lima, a guy who I think is just a little bit better than him right now, he's going to win this fight. I think he wins it by decision. Next fight, we've got Jocelyn Edwards versus Eileen Perez. Perez being -265, I think it's a bit crazy. Here's one of these 50-50 matches I'm talking about, where on paper we know what's going to happen, at least early on, but what is going to happen at the end of the fight? Is it going to be a Perez decision, or is it going to be Jocelyn Edwards capitalizes on a Perez mistake to end up winning this fight? And Perez, again, -265, come back on Edwards, +210. Edwards is shown to be progressively getting better at, stuffing takedowns, getting her own takedowns. Her boxing's good. Her striking's fine. It's just she's very easily beatable if you just want to beat her. Meaning that if you want to take her to the ground and hold her there, I think you have a lot of success there. But to maintain that without taking any damage, she's a very feisty gal. We saw what Pudilova did to her, meaning that she just relentlessly took her down. She did strike with her for a bit. She didn't just like try to take her down immediately, but she just found her openings, controlled her, and she still ended up losing that fight. Edwards found the way to win by just doing a bit more damage. With Perez, I like her setups to the takedowns. She's not actively always trying to take you down relentlessly, although when she does have you in her clutches, she will continuously go for those takedowns. Nickname is, well, at least it was Nurmagomedov, because she likes to go for that type of style now, like relentless wrestling. But I do think she's got enough striking on the feet to make it competitive, meaning I think she has power on the feet. She's got some tricky kicks. She's actually got a pretty nice switch kick. And the only issue with Perez is that if she gasses out going for takedowns, tiring herself out, Jocelyn Edwards has been working on her strength and conditioning. So with that, the takedown defense has gotten a little bit better. She is stronger. She's able to get back up. The issue is that if she finds herself on bottom, will Fiona or Perez or Nurmagomedov be able to maintain that control, which I do think she can because she's got that big fat ass. She can just lay on the bitch. So I do like Perez to win this one by decision, but the thing is, money-wise, it's not there for me. Like, she has to be dominant for at least 2 rounds for me to feel comfortable, and I don't think she's going to be dominant for 2 rounds. I think she'll be dominant for 1. The second round might be iffy, where she gets the top control, and you're wondering, hey, did Perez do enough with that top control? Did she do enough damage, which is a bit iffy? Or did the Jocelyn Edwards get up with the last minute and a couple strikes to the body and Fiona kind of missing a takedown? Was that enough to sway the judges? So that's going to be worrisome for me. I will take Perez to edge it out with this decision. But Jocelyn Edwards, I think she might be a live dog, betting her live. Next bout, we've got Mickey Gall versus Basil Hafez. Automatically, I was thinking maybe Mickey Gall might be live here. He is plus 225. And Hafez, who is currently minus 290. What I find interesting about this bout more so is that these are 2 guys who are, some might say, not UFC caliber. They are record-wise 8-4-1 for Hafez. Mickey Gall 7-5. The difference is Mickey Gall has fought real UFC level competition, whereas Basil Hafez, he fought one guy in the UFC. Granted, I do think Jack Della is going to be contending for a title. Maybe not in the near future. I just found out his elbow got jacked, or his bone in his arm. I think when he broke his arm against Gilbert, it got really fucked up. But I do think that Jack is going to contend. The issue with that fight is that if you look at it for what it is, did Hafez look impressive, or did Jack Della make too many hubris mistakes trying to go for a guillotine on a guy that strong and that good at jiu-jitsu? Now, Hafez did beat Mickey Gall in a grappling competition. I don't remember what it was, whether Naga or whatever, but I do think that Hafez wins this fight if Mickey Gall still looks like same old Mickey Gall. I do think Mickey has made a lot of improvements with his striking. There's fucking construction happening on it. It's pissing me off. But I think Mickey Gall's made a lot of improvements with his boxing, with his kickboxing. His grappling's always been there. It's just that, like, when you're getting dominated on the mat by guys like Mike Perry, it's really tough to feel confident in a guy like Mickey Gall, who's not athletic, who's not really imposing. I do think that if he can catch Hafez on the feet, who is, he's not been in the UFC. Let me preface by saying his striking's been a bit shit. He has power. He's very stiff. He's not very fluid. He can punch. He's a puncher. But when you're not in the UFC and you're not making that kind of money, it's understandable, right? That's not your base. You're a grappler. But now that he's got some money in his pocket from the UFC, he's like, yeah, I can put in a little bit more striking emphasis on my training camps. And I think that he has been doing that. Plan B, obviously, take him down, control him on the mat. He's a much stronger guy. I don't think there's going to be much threat of submission from Mickey Gall unless he catches him. And I do think that Mickey can rock him or even wobble him, even though Hafez hasn't been finished. It's just that I think Mickey's just not quite there. I think you can bully Mickey around. He still has that mentality of that he's a child in the UFC. And that's been his biggest issue. He was a child coming into the UFC, not ready. And he fought CM Punk. And then he beat Sage Northcutt. 2 guys, again, not quite ready. He did beat some veterans here and there. I just don't feel confident in Mickey Gall to really fight for that money. I think if you do hurt him, which Hafez could definitely do, he can really put him out or take him down and control him. I think if Mickey Gall doesn't get the ball rolling early, meaning he looks good on the feet, stuffs takedowns, and makes Hafez work, I think it's all downhill for him there. If he can't do that shit, I think Hafez is going to just will his way to victory. Like, we saw what he did to Jack. Like, he definitely tried. Like, there was some good stuff there where he was clearly rocked on the feet, and he continued to try to fight. That's all I can ask for a guy. So I think Hafez is going to win this one by a decision. He could find a finish along the way, but safe bet to me is Hafez decision. If, say, for example, it is Mickey Gall swinging the hammer, I think Hafez will be able to get those takedowns just muscling him down because he is the more physically imposing dude. Next bout, another fight where it's motherfucker, right? It's Nico Price versus Morono 2. Morono, my bad. Morono minus 260, which is understandable. He is, on paper, the better fighter. And then we got Nico Price, who is plus 215. The issue is the first fight, Nico Price ended up knocking out Morono unofficially because he was on the devil's lettuce, so they didn't count it. So Morono looked impressive. He really rocked Price. He hurt him. He was beating his ass. And then Morono, with his style of like just constant movement, he got tired. And Nico Price, with that volume and that pressure and that athleticism, just ended up knocking him the fuck out against the cage. And that's what my biggest worry is about Morono. Really, in every single one of his fights, he can beat a lot of guys. I think he could beat a lot of the roster, especially these like middling guys like the Prices. I even think he could beat Joaquin Buckley if he wasn't so chinny. The issue with Morono is that he is very chinny. You can shut his lights off, you can make him wobble, and then at that point he's not fighting as intelligently, and you'll hear his corner yelling at him and shit like, "You got to move, Alex, you got to move." With Price, the reason he's such a big dog here, I guess a moderate dog, is because he has shown that crack in that chin in the past. Yeah, he's been wobbled, but he's at least been able to overcome. The way that Robbie Lawler handled him in his last fight was a big concern. I never saw that coming. It literally looked like he took a dive for Robbie Lawler, his hero. It sucks here because I do think Morono's going to look really good in the first, 2 rounds. But if he cannot put Nico Price out, I think he's going to be in a world of trouble in the late second or in the early third. So it's like, I don't want to trust Morono in this price, but I do think Morono can knock him out early. I think if he comes out here like he did in the first fight and just puts hands on him, he's the more technical dude, and he can make Nico swing and miss. It's just that if Morono gets tired, or if he overthinks shit, if he doesn't become too offensive and just tries to strictly be defensive, I think Nico Price can catch him with something goofy. So I am going to lean for for Alex Morono to knock him out in the first round. It's just that if he can't do that, that's where Nico's super live. Like, he might even get knocked out in the third, Nico, that is, but he's going to 1,000% fight for your money. Like, you cannot count out Nico Price in any fight. Like, this dude, we've seen it, Randy Brown, he gets taken down, he just hammer fists him from the bottom. The dude has ridiculous athletic power, and that's what Alex doesn't have. Like, he has technique, he has skill, he has IQ, he just doesn't have athleticism and raw natural baby-making power like what Nico Price has, because he has like 7 kids. But I got Morono first round, not uber confident in him. Next bout, we've got Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews, no longer the Celtic Kid because he is no longer a part of that clan. He's a part of a different clan. The Fresh Prince, he is plus 135. Come back on Jake Matthews is minus 165. I don't like Jake Matthews in this spot, mainly because he's already fought a long, lanky striker, maybe not as technical as what Phil Rowe is in, God, what the fuck is his name? Yeah, Michael Morales, Spider-Man Morales. Phil Rowe, I feel as if he's, I think Phil Rowe could be, he's 33, man. I don't want to say he can be a contender, but he could be in that talk. I think he can be in the talk of being in like the top 15 if he really focused on a lot of shit, meaning he has good boxing, he has good jiu-jitsu, his takedown defense has gotten better, his takedowns themselves have gotten better. It's just I feel like Phil Rowe and another guy on this card kind of play around too much. Like, they feel too confident in their hands that they don't really round out their skill set. And that's kind of hard to say because Phil Rowe is working on his jiu-jitsu. He's grappling a lot. He's still losing these bouts, but he is grappling quite a bit. He grappled, Craig Jones and shit. My issue with Phil Rowe is mainly that I feel as if he could easily win these fights, or he just lets these fights slip out of his hands. Like for example, against Nico Price, he's clearly beating Nico, but then he kind of lets his hands off. He lets his foot off the gas a bit, and he lets Nico take over in that third round, and he gets wobbled. He ended up coming back and winning that fight, but a guy with better, not necessarily better cardio, but with better fight IQ might be able to actually finish Phil Rowe. I think that Jake Matthews will have the wrestling advantage, which is going to be great and fine and dandy, but will Phil Rowe threaten off of his back with his long-ass arms, long-ass legs? He's a definite threat with the chokes, and definitely he's going to have the better boxing, but I almost feel like Phil doesn't throw a lot sometimes, which is my biggest worry about him. But if he does throw, his combinations are absolutely crisp. Beautiful 1-2s, good counters. He has to show me in this fight that he can contend, because we've seen in his last loss against Neil Magny, instead of striking with Neil Magny, he decides to do what Neil Magny does best, and that's clinch up against the cage. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Phil? He doesn't seem to have that mentality of a fighter. He has the mentality of a showboat, like he wants to be a winner instead of a actual winning fights, is what I kind of get from him. Like, he, instead of taking the fight where he is best suited, whether it be on the feet or on the ground in certain cases, where, for example, Jake Matthews, his boxing's getting a lot better. He's going to be very fast. I don't know, fast enough to kind of close the distance on Phil, but if he does seem to have like the speed advantage, will Phil Rowe try to grapple with him? That's what I worry about. Like, I do think he might try, but will he abandon that if he can't get a takedown? Jake, I think he's a more complete fighter, but he's got another fucking airplane. He's got a similar shit to Phil Rowe, where he fucking drops the ball constantly. He could be winning every minute of the first round, then he gets dropped hard like he got against Semelsberger. I don't know. Jake is a perpetual ball dropper. It's a really 50-50 matchup, hence the odds kind of being close. But in this case, I do think I see a lot of promise in Phil Rowe. Like Jake Matthews, I think that he has a ceiling where he's going to look good in certain spots, but he still finds a way to lose a fight. And I think with Phil Rowe having better boxing, keeping him at distance, I think he can win a fight by a decision here. He can definitely even catch Jake Matthews in a choke. He's been choked out plenty of times, right? Anaconda chokes, guillotine chokes, long man chokes, and I do think that maybe Jake Matthews has a bit of issue fighting longer men, especially guys like Phil Rowe who can keep him at bay with like a jab. Michael Morales showed it, but Michael also doesn't have the same technical acumen as Phil Rowe does on the feet. Just he has more volume. I'm going to go with Phil Rowe by decision. I think he can find a finish along the way. I wouldn't count on it. I don't really feel comfortable betting Phil. I should also say I'm going to be traveling during these fights. I'm not going to be doing a lot of live betting. I don't really even have any bets lined up quite yet, so I'm going to have to figure some shit out. But I'll go with Phil Rowe here by decision. Next bout, we've got a pretty easy fight, Grant Dawson versus Joe Solecki. Joe is plus 250, comeback on Dawson is minus 320. You're either going to take Joe Solecki money line, you're either going to take Joe Solecki submission, or Grant Dawson decision. Because Grant Dawson, to me, he's better everywhere. He's better than Joe Solecki in every asset except submissions, really. That's it. Joe Solecki's got nasty squeeze. He's got good jiu-jitsu, good submissions off of his back. But if he can't take you down, he won't be able to strike with you. I think he has good visual boxing, but not good practical boxing, if that makes sense. Like, you'll see him move his arms and shoulders and shit like, oh, he can box. But he's not boxing. He's just doing that to make you think he's going to box with you, and then he's going to shoot for a takedown. If he can't get a takedown, he's kind of fucked. And that's really it. If you can stuff Joe Solecki's takedowns, he's not much of a threat anywhere. He's not going to knock you out on the feet. You can't let him take your back, that's for sure. And Grant Dawson, I think he is very, very, very good at that one thing, and that is taking you down, controlling you, taking your back, controlling you. He's not going to submit Joe Solecki. He's not going to knock him out. He might knock him out. You know, Joe just got knocked out recently with that nasty nasty basketball slam. So there's a possibility there because Grant has serviceable striking when he is the better striker, and he is the better striker here. He has that Kraus up knee up the middle. His low kicks are good. He's getting more improved. He's definitely improving as a fighter. But that chin is always going to be a problem there. Is Joe Solecki going to say, fuck it, this is the time I'm going to actually box with somebody because fuck this guy and his stupid chin? Maybe. But Grant Dawson, if you can't put him out, he will die for the legs and he will take you down. So I will go with Grant Dawson by a decision. I feel pretty comfortable he's going to win this fight. But Grant Dawson's also kind of known as a guy that you can't really trust in certain spots. He definitely can get wobbled. If you can put him out, great. But I don't know, man. I've seen him recover from getting hurt. It's just that Bobby Green knockout really put a sour taste in my mouth because we always kind of suspected that about Grant Dawson. Like, you hit him just right, he's going to crumble. Like, he crumbled really bad that fight. But in this case, I don't see Joe Solecki having anything as tricky as Bobby Green, so I'm going to go with Grant Dawson by a decision. Next bout, we've got Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida. Almeida is plus 115. I think it's actually gotten a little bit more narrow now. It's like minus, I think he might be minus 115 now. And Roman Kopylov, minus 135, allegedly. Again, I think he's like a minus 105. It's a close fight here between two strikers. And, one is a glory kickboxer. The other one's a very good kicker in Roman Kopylov. I like Kopylov, right? And this is a really good spot for him to steal a bit of the hype and momentum from Cesar Almeida, who's only 5-0, but again, wealth of experience in kickboxing, fought you-know-who in kickboxing and lost a decision. I think he actually beat him by decision once. Pereira, that is. And Kopylov, with Kopylov, if you strike with him, you're going to be in trouble, right? You're going to be in trouble because he likes working the body, very fast kicks. My issue with Kopylov is if you do wrestle him, if you try to engage in the wrestling with him and he's not effective in hurting you on the feet, and there's a lot of pressure coming your way like we saw with Fluffy Hernandez. We've seen it happen many a time. You put pressure on the guy, you can kind of crack him a bit. He does not like the pressure moving forward. He doesn't like moving backwards either. With Cesar Almeida being such a good kickboxer, and I got to say, this fucker's tricky as shit because you see him, you tape him, and he's knocking dudes out, but the dude is sneaky good. He is very, very good when it comes to his clinch game and his actual wrestling and ground and pound. Like, he can get dudes to the ground and work them on the ground. He just prefers to obviously strike. In this case, I do think Cesar Almeida has underrated fight IQ. We saw when he made his UFC debut and he was a bit counted out against Budka. Is it Budka? What's his first name? Dennis Budka? Dylan Budka. Dylan had a one-track mind in that fight, and that's taking him down. The thing about Cesar Almeida, he uses very little energy. He knows how to stuff takedowns. He knows how to get back up without using the utmost energy to then just make you rework. And then when he gets you a bit fatigued in the clinch, he's able to work you there. He's able to really find his strikes here. He has power with the punches. He's more of a puncher. Kopylov's never been knocked out. He's been mostly submitted. I would not put it past Cesar Almeida to get him to the ground. Like, I can't say this outright because I've only seen 5 of his fights, and most of them have been really quick. But I've seen this guy in the Contender Series work a jiu-jitsu guy on the ground and beat the shit out of him. Granted, I don't necessarily trust his takedowns, but I wouldn't put it past him to actually strike with him, put some pressure on him, clinch him against the cage, knee him to the body, get a trip, get him to the ground, and kind of work him off there. I think if you do that to Kopylov, he's really got no other options because on the feet, he's not going to have the most effective offense. He's going to land some kicks here or there to the body. He could hurt Almeida. It's a very slim chance, right? He's going to have to put some nasty offense on Almeida to kind of trick him. The dude has nasty fast kicks up on top. I like Almeida in this spot, I'll just say. I think he's got the more well-rounded skill set. I don't think Roman's going to try to take it to the ground. If he does, I'll be surprised. I actually think it's going to be Almeida taking it to the ground. I do think he can find a submission or a TKO on top. I'm going to go bold and say that it's going to be Almeida's submission. I do think he can find that submission on Almeida. Almeida on Kopylov later in like the second or third round. It's just my bold prediction. I do think it's more than likely goes to a decision, but I wouldn't put it past Almeida to be like, I can fucking submit guys too. So Almeida for me is a third round sub. As I mentioned earlier with the main card opener, this is Randy Brown versus Zaleski Dos Santos. We've got another guy who kind of likes to showboat a bit, and Randy Brown kind of played too much. He played too much. He's minus 155. Come back on Zaleski is plus 130. This should be Randy Brown finding that straight right hand and knocking out Zaleski. I just don't find that to be the most obvious thing to happen. It could happen, but Randy Brown sometimes doesn't have enough offense. He plays around too much. He ducks his head. With a guy like Zaleski, it's really tough to count him out, especially what he's been doing recently with his resurgence. And what I mean by with his resurgence, meaning that he's found the right cocktail of masking agent and steroids to really trick the non-USADA that's out there right now. At plus 130, man, I like Zaleski in this spot quite a bit, but at 37 years old, he's definitely shown signs of aging, but the skill is still there. Like, he's got the power, he's got the kicks, he's got the counter wrestling, he's got the wrestling of his own, he's got the jiu-jitsu. But Randy Brown, like, he is definitely the more skilled of the two. He's the faster, the younger, the hungrier, but he's not even that much younger. He's 5 years younger. The thing is that if Randy Brown cannot find that kill shot early, I think Zaleski's going to be live with some nasty low kicks, some offense, some kicks to the body. I think if you pressure Randy, he's definitely not going to be offensive. Randy's got a shitty chin himself. I can't trust Randy Brown. I am going to go with Zaleski here by a knockout in the second round. That's really it. I can't trust Randy. I do think Randy can come out here and knock him the fuck out. But, man, if he doesn't do that, then what? What do we got? He's going to just jab him and pepper him? You think Zaleski's going to just take that shit? He's going to come after Randy. He's going to attack the legs. I used to think that Randy had a bit of like the Bambi leg syndrome. It's just that he's got long ass legs. They're pretty thick, but still they're a target for Zaleski to attack. He's going to attack the body. If I'm being honest, I do want to see Randy Brown just come out here and knock him out, because that's the most logical thing to happen. But Randy's such an illogical fighter that he can get knocked out by like the most middling fighter out there. And 37-year-old Zaleski, I think he can get it done. At plus money, I might take a shot on him. I might. We'll see. But I've got Zaleski second round knockout. Next bout, Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. See, here's my contention here. Jailton Almeida minus 300. Come back on Romanov is plus 240. I don't think Almeida should be minus 300. Not because I don't think he's going to win, but because after what we saw his last fight, where he fought a wrestler, and he was very ineffective with his jiu-jitsu, it doesn't make sense for him to be minus 300. I think he should be maybe like minus 200, maybe even minus 180. But this is saying we fully expect him to take down Romanov and either submit him or pound him out, which is very likely to happen. Romanov, Greco-Roman background, he's a big fat piece of shit. Striking's kind of shit. Kind of a quitter. We saw what happened when a guy like Volkov was able to get on top of him. He basically quit. The difference is Volkov's a fucking giant, a massive man, nearly 7-footer, enormous dude. And Almeida, he is just a hydrated light heavyweight. And my thought process with Almeida is that he's got great jiu-jitsu. He's going to take down Romanov. Whether he's going to dominate him on the mat the first round and finish him is why he's minus 300. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I want it to happen, but if Romanov, who I think he's definitely improving a bit, if he focuses himself on, he's getting really fat right now, which to me means he's trying to build up as much mass to make it difficult for Almeida to not only take him down, but to gas himself out taking him down. And on top of that, he won't be able to get massive hooks in on him. He won't be able to get a body triangle on him. He's going to have to TKO him. And if Romanov stays kind of like chill and pushes us off to the second round and doesn't really gas himself out trying to stop takedowns and defend submissions and shit, I think at that point he might be live to get on top of Almeida himself, lay flat as dead weight that motherfucker, make him work, get him tired, because I do suspect Almeida's going to gas himself out with all that muscle trying to take down this fat piece of shit. At that point, are you going to be comfortable in your minus 300 Almeida? I would not. That meaning is I'd rather take Almeida in the first round. If it goes past the first round, we'll see then, with Romanov. I will take Almeida to do so, because at this point, you just got to take him down and do something to him. But I just don't think it's going to be that easy. I will go with the logical choice of going with Almeida by first round knockout. I think he gets on top of him, pounds him out. Submission might be difficult because, again, he won't be able to take his back fully. If, those love handles are going to be too much for him to wrap his legs around. So I'll go with Almeida by knockout in the first round, TKO. But I do think Romanov might be live here. The reason I don't feel comfortable taking Romanov and just saying, hey, just bet Romanov, because Juan Espino was able to just bitch toss him to the ground. And I've always seen the quitter bitch in Romanov. This is the one moment that if he can bypass those quitter bitch feelings and he can beat Jailton Almeida, get it to the second round for me, baby, and then we can talk about betting the man. But for me, Almeida first round, I'm not betting him. I'd rather pick him first round finish than taking him outright. Next bout, Kevin Holland versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Minus 250 for Kevin Holland. Comeback on Michal is plus 200. I like Kevin in this spot because I think it's a tailor-made fight for him to win. Meaning that, Kevin's tough, Kevin's long, Kevin's lanky, Kevin's the better fighter between both of them. Michal, this is at middleweight, by the way. He's moving back up to middleweight, which, to me, I think Kevin fights probably better at middleweight than he does at welterweight. I think at welterweight, there's going to be two fast guys. At middleweight, he's just a bit stronger. I think with his learning lessons at welterweight, moving back to middleweight, it's really going to help him in the spot because he doesn't have to worry about a wrestler here. He's going to have more power at middleweight. And that's really what I like about Kevin at this spot. He's going to be the bigger guy. He's going to be the longer guy, 81-inch reach compared to the 74. Michal's going to have to do what Kevin wants him to do any offense, meaning he's going to have to come in close the distance where Kevin can land vicious knees to the body, elbows, clinch him up, maybe go for takedowns of his own. And if at distance, Michal's going to have to lunge in, which, he's got great boxing. He's a tough piece of shit. Super fucking tough. But I think that this is a spot where Kevin Holland can really rinse and repeat. Similar style to what Chidi Njokuani did, but without, the massive, nasty kicks and the flash. And obviously better jiu-jitsu and better cardio. I think this is the spot for Kevin Holland to really get back on track. He's never lost 3 in a row ever. Officially, I know he got headbutted by Dawkins, and they had to overturn that. You want to consider it a loss? I don't, because I got my money back that fight. But I do think that Michal, we kind of found out that his chin is great, so you attack the body. I think Kevin Holland going to get him in close, attack the body. Issue with Kevin, why I always, at this point, don't really feel comfortable betting him, is that he does break his hands. And he's shown to have a bit of the Randy Brown in him, a little bit of the, who's that other fucking dude who I just mentioned earlier in this card? He's got a bit of the Randy Brown. He's got a bit of the, what the fuck is that other cunt who played too much? The Phil Rowe in him, where he just kind of plays around a little bit too much. He's known to talk a lot. He's known to just dick around. He's not uber serious. The last time I saw him serious and he was like a killer was against Michael Chiesa, and he looked amazing in that fight. He wasn't no nonsense. He just beat the shit out of Chiesa, and I think this is a spot for him to go back to those roots. Shut the fuck up, Kevin Holland, and beat a motherfucker's ass. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to submit Michal in the second round. I think he's going to pepper him to the body, pepper him upstairs, use long right hands, jabs and such. And he's going to eventually, it's going to sound crazy, but have Michal go for a takedown, and he's going to snatch up a neck. So I'll go with Kevin Holland by submission second round. Next bout, Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa. Tarzan versus the Eraser. Minus 205 for Strickland. Comeback on Costa is plus 170. This is at welter or middleweight, and this is a 5-round fight. So if this was a 3-round fight, I would, like many people would say, Costa super live. And I do think Costa is hella live. He is, the motherfucker's athletic as fuck. He hits hard. He can't necessarily match Strickland in the boxing, the technical side, but he's just got the athleticism to make it more difficult for Strickland, where I can see Strickland getting knocked out in the first 2 rounds with that crazy, massive power and athleticism that Costa has. Also, Costa, I do think he's going to try to mix in some wrestling here, which we saw Dricus have some success against Strickland with the wrestling, where it didn't necessarily dominate him. It just kind of broke up his rhythm where he lost rounds, where in this being a 5-round fight, I do think Sean Strickland's jab is going to be super effective. He does have the reach advantage as well. He won't have the speed advantage, but Strickland is one of the more defensively sound fighters in the UFC. And I think Costa's going to have a lot of issues there. I think he's going to have to land something early for Strickland to either get wobbled or rocked. I just don't see it happening with Costa. As much as I love Costa, I don't know if he is truly invested in fighting, right? Like he's got the great physique. He's super fun on Twitter. We see that he's training. It's just, I don't know if he ever really rounded out his game. Like he just thinks that he's going to come through and steamroll guys. And even with Luke Rockhold, he had some trouble. And he did have a bit of success in that not early, in the first round against Robert Whittaker, but even after that, Robert just took over with blitzes. And I think Sean Strickland, the way he moves forward, the way he throws, how active he is with that jab, he will bust up the nose of Costa. And I think he's going to cruise to a decision. Whether if Costa does fade, there could be a late finish for Sean Strickland, who will not tire. And I also think this is a really good fight for Strickland, where you know how he always talks about, like, I want to go to the death, I want to fight somebody. This might be the guy for him, a guy who might just go out there and bang it out with them in the pocket, where Sean Strickland can actually fight like the man he says he is. That's the one shit I have against Sean, is that he always talks all this shit about wanting to kill motherfuckers and go to war with these guys, and he just stays on the outside, pitter-patter jabs. And I'm like, dude, do it. Go for it. He tends to do it in the last seconds of the fucking final round. And I think this is a good guy for him to display that. And we'll see if he's about that life. He says he's about that life. I'm not trying to shit on him. Like, I'm in his home state right now, in his hometown in Corona, California. So I got to give him some shit. I've been through his fucking old neighborhood. I can see why he's so angry. But another thing is that he actually has an emotional support dog. He doesn't want to call it that, but he has a nice little German Shepherd puppy. And I do think that actually might help him out a lot. Like, he has that little puppy, something to care for, something to love. He can actually express himself, so now he feels a little bit more calm. He doesn't have to be all that violent. Maybe if we get like a more pussified version of Sean Strickland out in the real world, we might actually get a more violent version of Sean Strickland in the cage, because I think he holds that that aggression out for the fucking road rage, and he lets it out there when he should be letting it out in the cage. So we might actually get that pent up angry Sean Strickland in the cage for the first time, instead of, him talking shit at the press conferences. So I do like Sean Strickland in this spot. Minus 205, I might parlay him with maybe a couple other guys. But for Paulo Costa, he's going to have to put the gas on Sean and make him second guess himself. A Sean Strickland who isn't in his own head in the cage is going to look great. He's going to move forward. He's going to fucking look like fucking white Mayweather out there. But as I always said with Sean, when he was talking about the lead up to the Dricus fight, like, I knew there was some fucking insecurities in his head that he was going to find a way to lose that fight, whether it be not throwing enough, whether it be not being aggressive enough. And that's what essentially happened. He handed that fight to Dricus, letting him take him down, just looking lost in certain spots, letting him bloody him up. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think he's going to learn his lessons. I've seen the sparring footage of him. He's looking on point. He's looking loose. I got Sean Strickland in this matchup. He's going to use that reach, bust up Paulo, and it's going to go to a decision. Paulo, I love you so fucking much, but this is not the best fight for you. It's really not. Like, a guy who can box like that, who can be defensive, we'll see what we can find for you later. Maybe a Kevin Holland. But in this spot, I got Sean. And then final fight, we've got the main event lightweight title, Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. Dustin is plus 360, come back on. Islam minus 480. There's a lot of talk about, shit, I've been saying it, Dustin's been saving up that one, snatching up the guillotine, jumping for guillotine for the right spot. He's been talking about it. He's been advertising it. Everyone's talking about it. Like, this is the moment it's going to happen. It ain't going to fucking happen. You really think that it's going to happen against Islam? It'd be funny as shit. I want it to happen. But you don't think Islam's like training guillotine escapes and shit? You think Islam's going to really put himself